Hey guys, welcome back. So in the last video we started our work on functions, and then we saw the basics. So we saw basic syntax, how to create functions and how to call functions. And we also saw how to make our functions dynamic by passing parameters, by using parameters and arguments. We said at the point when you are creating the function, you pass parameters, which are basically variables or placeholders, and you can work on these variables in your function body, but they get their real values from the argument you pass when you call the function. Okay, now we want to talk about return values. So far our functions have been using console statements to basically log things in the console, and that's fine. But the real beauty of function, or how function is supposed to work, is that when you call a function, it gets a value, and it gets a value that you return from it. Now think about functions like this. Think about it in terms of input and output. So the inputs we give to a functions are the parameters or the arguments when we call it. Now the output is what they return, so we call them the return values. So let's see an example. So let's say we have a function that just adds two numbers. So we'll call them add. Just keep it really simple. So it has parameters a and b, and all it does is let's put the sum in a variable. So we'll say const sum, and then we'll say a plus b, and then we go ahead and return so we'll say return sum. So what do you think is going on here? So we have this function. You are familiar with this line, and you're also familiar with this line. We just made a variable called sum, and we assigned it the sum of a and b, right? And then we return the sum. Now this keyword here, return, is the keyword that actually produces an output from a function. So when we call this function, remember we don't have any console.log here. So when we say add and we pass 5 and 9, okay, so this guy here holds the value, which will be sum of 5 and 9. So for us to get this out, we actually console log this. So we can say console.log, and then we put a function call, and then include the parameters, and then we look at our console and we see 14, which is the sum of 5 and 9. And if we change this to 50 and 19, we should get 69. Okay, and we got 69. Okay, so when you return a value from a function, you are specifying a value that the function call will hold. Now if you don't return any value from a function, the function call is not going to hold any value. The value is going to be undefined, which means you are not returning anything from the function. And so if we check this out, you get undefined. You see, so undefined is the value that is returned by default from every function. Actually, every function returns a value. It's just that when you don't specifically say what you want to return using the return keyword, your function will return undefined by default. Remember, undefined is a value. We saw that when we talked about data types. So undefined is actually a value that indicates absence of any value. I know that that sounds somehow, but that's what undefined is. Okay, so now even if we had said console.log here, okay, even if we had said console.log and then we are doing sum, okay, and then we console log, yeah, we're gonna get 69. And this 69, where is it coming from? Let's see, it's coming from line 90. Yeah, it's coming from here just because we are calling the function, right? But the function itself does not return any value. Okay, so if we remove this, nothing, undefined. So when you want to return a function from a value, you explicitly use the return keyword. And yeah, when you call the function, or when you console log the function call, it will show the value that it returns. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So there's one more thing I want us to talk about in function. You know what, let's do one more example. So let's say we have a function that takes an array and sums up that array and returns the value, returns the sum of the array. Okay, so let's do, okay, this is still going to be add, let's call it sum. Now it's going to take an array, so I say array, and then sum initially is going to be 0. So we initialize, and then because we're going to be updating this using a for loop, we're going to make this say let, and then the next thing we want to do is to have a for loop that will iterate over this array. So we'll say for, and then we'll say let's I equals 0, and then we iterate as long as I is less than or equal to array dot length. Hope I got that correct. And then all we just do is to increment it, say I plus plus. So what is this our for loop going to do? It is going to just do sum. Remember, we have a variable called sum up here. So for the first iteration, it is going to add the value. Actually, sum is going to be sum plus array at the current position. So what this is doing is, for the first iteration, we're going to pass an array to this function, and that array is going to be an array of numbers. So this function is going to iterate using this for loop. It's going to iterate over this array and then sum up the sum of all the numbers in the array. So when we call this function, we say sum. Actually, finally, what we are going to do is to return, once the loop is done, we're going to return sum. Okay, so you know what, let's call this sum all. Call this sum all. So we return sum all. So we'll call sum, and then we pass an array, and let's just start with an array of 12, 10, and 5. Okay, so of course we need to log it to the console so that we'll see what we have. So CLG, short for console, and then we'll save. And looks like our array didn't quite work well, so let's see what we did wrong. We said for let's I0, and we need to use sum all. So say sum all, and then we save. Okay, it says not a number. Why is that? Why is that? Okay, let's use the short form. So we'll say plus equal, and then we'll save that. Yep. Okay. So why is that? We passed an array, we'll call sum. So why does it say not a number? I0, I less than equal to array the length, and then we'll say I plus plus. Yeah. let's all 0 4. Okay, so just give me a moment, let me check this and then okay, welcome back guys. So I figured out what the issue is. So this is really interesting because it also provides a point of learning. So what we did wrong was this guy here. Actually, there are two ways to fix this. We can say less than or equal to, then array dot length minus 1. Now, because we said, because we are saying that the starting point of the loop is when I is 0, I represent the current iteration, which is the first index. So we're saying when on the first index, that's when the element has an index of 0. That's the starting point. So it will start from 12. And then we're saying it should continue up until, or initially, this is what we have, up until array dot length, up until it is less than or equal to array dot length. But remember, array dot length is 3, right? This is going to be 3. However, there is no element here with an index of 3. This index is 0, this index is 1, this index is 2. Okay, so at the last part is it goes to look for an element with an index of 3 because we said less than or equal to, so including 3. So what we can do, if you want to keep our less than or equal to, we can do minus 1 because this is the index of the last element in the array. Remember, this is going to be the length of the array minus 1. I mentioned that when we talked about our arrays. So if we do that, if we just add minus 1 and then we save, everything will be fine. So you see we get 27, which is the sum of all the numbers in the array. Okay, now if you don't want to put this 1, then we have to just stick to less than. Okay, so it doesn't include the last the last index or the index of the last element. It's just less than. Okay, so we still get the same thing. Okay, so I think we can, any of this will work. So let's increase this. So let's say we do let's increase this. Let's add another number, 6, 19, 25. So this is summing up all the numbers in an array. So we'll save this, we'll get 139. Okay, so yeah, that's how you can create function that really does great things. And you can see there's really no limit to what we can do with functions. So this is a combination of functions and arrays and arguments and parameters. Okay, so now one more thing I want to show you on function is function expressions. So far what we've been looking at is function declaration. We just declare a function and we call it. There's something else called function expressions, and that is where you pass function as a value to a variable. So we can say const my func and then this. Okay, so you see what we've done is we have passed this function as an argument. Sorry, we passed it as a value to this variable. And I think I will end this video here and probably talk about function expressions in later video. This is already quite long. So yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Drop it on the comment section and I'll attend to it. Alright, thank you for watching and I'll see you in another video.